Recording is in progress. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I think everyone knows what we're going to be talking about today, so let's just jump right into it. I am QJ Wong. I'm not level 2, I'm a level 3. I've forgotten to edit this. I'm a level 3 from Malaysia. I've been playing card games for 22 years. That's Chiro, by the way. Thank you, Sean. I've been a TO for 16 years. I run and own a store in Malacca for 13 years, and I have been judging for 10 years. And so I have been around for a while, and hopefully I have some insights to share with you regarding judge compensation. And before I go into that, I just want to make it clear that I am not a lawyer, nor am I an accountant. So we are not going to talk about visas or laws or taxes, because Southeast Asia is a really, really big Southeast Asia, we're a very, very big region with many different governments. And every government will have different rules and laws that will govern this exact things. So I am not certified to tell you how you should be doing your taxes, nor dealing with visas, working visas, permits, and things like that. Just want to get that away first, because nothing that I say today should constitute as a legal advice or financial advice. Please, just want to make this clear first. So, judge compensation, right? We want to talk about judge compensation. But before we talk about compensation, I want to ask everyone to consider, why do they judge in the first place, right? Everyone has different reasons for judging, different motivations, and depending on those motivations or reasons, this is gonna guide the way that you think about compensation, especially when you are employed to do a certain thing. Like let's see, does anyone wants to like why do you want to judge? Why do you judge? Like, why do you want to be a judge? Does anyone wants to share in the chat quickly? It's a quick one or two things. Or you can just pop on to the. I don't mind if you want to turn on your mic and have a quick answer. Love the game. Foils, one of the foils. You heard the law. So poor to be competitive. I run an online community. Come out of the house officially. you need a reason to go out of the house. Foils, loving the game. Power, supporting community. Foils. Serve Joel. Okay. But yes, so for a lot of people, judging is a hobby. You do this for fun, because I personally find very, very there's a huge sense of accomplishment. This sort of like feeling of accomplishment at the end of a good day of tournament judging, especially the more complicated the tournament is, or the more difficult the tasks or responsibilities that I have for a particular event, right? At the end of the day, everything went well. Everything went, relatively well, despite one or two hiccups or whatever, right? At the end of the day, there's this really, really good feeling of accomplishment at the end of the day that I relish. Like, this is like one of my key reasons why I judge, where I am looking for that euphoria at the end of the day. And yeah, it's like what Cecilia just said in the chat, right? Like, being in part of tournament makes people happy, makes me happy. So this is one of the primary reasons that I judge. I'm not going to read that chat. If anyone wants to know why I just chuckled, please check out the chat. But yeah, uh, among other things, like being part of the community, like a lot of how other people also pointed out in the chat, right? Being part of the community, doing things for the community, helping people enjoy the event, helping the community enjoy the event, things like that. These are personal reasons that makes you happy, that makes it more of a hobby than anything else. But humans are complex. Um, Me being happy at using judging as a hobby, as a way to find enjoyment and accomplishment is not the only reasons. We can have a mix of motivations. And for some people, judging is a way to supplement their income. So, like, you can use that money that you get from judging to pay the bills. Like not all the bills. It's not gonna, like, judging a GP is not gonna, or Magic Fest, or no, Magic Fest and GPs are both absolutely. Judging a regional championship, it's not gonna help you pay all the bills, but it will help you pay maybe some of the bills. Like or the extra money that you can get is something that can help you buy a new command deck or foil out parts of the command deck, things like that. These are one way how, for some people, judging can contribute. Yes, and also there are people. I believe it's going to be very difficult for our region, but there are there exists a lot of people in this world, especially in North America, to be able to take the judging as a full-time job. This job not only pays all the bills, it also is where they get money to have fun, enjoy themselves, or put aside some amount of money. This is largely only possible in places where there are a lot of events and a lot of constant large events that we're going to talk about in a bit. Namely North America. This is really primarily a North America, or maybe in some parts of Europe thing. It is not impossible for our region, but usually this involves being at the same time being involved in your employer in some form, like being a store employee. If you work for the store, you run and help organize events for the store. Also, at the same time, you might be able to do a lot of judging, things like that. Look in the chat. Evidence. I'm gonna. Is that a card? A recent card or something? Evelyn. Does anyone wants to solve this mystery for Evelyn MTG quickly for this? Are you collecting evidence? Someone collecting evidence? Sorry, this is a very interesting sidetrack for me. But yes, we're going to talk about judging as a full-time job, right? It is something that I think is possible. Like, even in North America, it's going to be something that's very, very difficult. Even in North America, you have to have things that really align for you. Like, if, like, let's say if you start from nothing, and if you are struggling to pay the bills in the first place, you might not be in the financial situation, or you don't have the ability to learn or gain skills and experience in judging, right? So it's not something that you could just jump in blindly, because you need to have a sort of like a financial stability or ability to have the chance to earn these skills and abilities before you can jump into making it a full-time job. And also, as a full-time job, there is like some degree of luck involved. Like if the stars have to align so much so that not only you have the skills, you have the chance, you have the opportunity to prove yourself as a very skilled judge, then it is possible for you to make it a full-time job. So the reason why I am spending so much time talking about all these different motivations and reasons why people judge is that because the way the base motivation to judge is very different for different people, it is very difficult to have a general advice that fits everyone. So I'm not trying to use today as a reason, not a reason. I'm not trying to use today as a way to give advice about how you should look at compensation, but rather I want to give you like all the different viewpoints and other perspectives that you might not have considered in thinking about judge compensation for yourself. I'm going to be exploring and touching upon like all the various different types of topics related to judge compensation, and hopefully we have a long, more involved Q&A session at the end where everyone can give me like exact questions on how I can help you at the end of the day. Because what your question is would be very highly specific for you, and I would want to try to help you as much as possible, but it is highly unlikely that there's a lot of people, there is a significant amount of people that might have the same exact question or exact problem as you are. So those regularly occurring questions or situations, I'll try to cover it in the majority part of this seminar. But if you have any more specific questions, if you feel free to ask them, you can send them in the chat. Write it out in the chat. I'll try to remember. I'll try to make a note of it if you do, and then I'll try and get to it at the end of the day. But if you have something like that you don't think is very general, feel free to leave it at the end of the seminar. So again, I'm not going to talk about exact numbers. Like we discussed, motivations are very different. Also, a dollar, $1 is going to mean very different to different people, right? That's what I meant by dollar value. It's not necessarily $1. Like money, the value of money specifically is very different for very different people. For example, if you already have a steady job and you have a 6-digit salary, I guess, sorry, add 3 zeros if you are from the Philippines. If you have 9-digit salary in Philippines, things like that. And then you have, so my point is you have a very stable job, you have a very big income already, and you only have like 1 month, 1 weekend off every month. That time that you have is going to be worth a lot more than, say, someone who doesn't have a lot of, who's living paycheck to paycheck, who has enough to pay all the bills, but nothing extra for their hobbies. So every dollar that they can get is something that is valuable, that's something that they can put into their hobbies. These two hypothetical person is gonna view the same amount of compensation very differently. Another reason why we can't really have why we're not going to be discussing exact numbers or the reasons or how much you should be charging or whatever, the events that judging is involved in is very, very different. Like 1 hour of work in your FNM, your Friday Night Magic, or your local game stores weekly events, right? It's going to be very different from the Pro Tour or even the regional championship or a large scale event like a MagicCon. It's going to be the effort you put in is going to be very different. And so that how much is that the time and effort that you put in, so how much is it going to be worth, and so on. Just taking a quick look at Nicholas' question. I am going to try and come back to this. Let me just pull out a notepad. Gigi, sorry, my cat. What's wrong, Gigi? No food. Sorry, bye. Let me mute myself for a short while. I'm asking my wife for help because the food bowl is empty and I think my cat is hungry. Right, sorry about that. Okay, come on. Yep. Everyone. That's the source of the delay, so I'm sorry about that. Yeah, cat break. Alright, moving on. Travel time and costs. depending on where you travel to, like if your local game store is just like 15 minutes walk away, it's going to be very different. The expectation for compensation it's going to be very different compared to flying off to Barcelona, for example, for the next MagicCon. There is, obviously the costs involved is going to be drastically different. Not just the travel time, but accommodations, food in North America and Europe. Some parts of Europe is going to be very expensive compared to home and so on. Food compared to like I think like even within Philippines to for example between not outside Metro Manila, I guess. Outside Metro Manila compared to Singapore, it's going to be very different. For example, yeah, lodgings, flights, food, things like that. And another point of consideration for people when you think about compensation is the skill level. I wanted to highlight specifically here, not necessarily your certification level, because the reality of things is that there are major potential employers, such as, for example, the MagicCon. Pastime events is the primary tournament organizer for MagicCons, and they do not put focus on levels. Um, you can be a level one and still be able to get lead positions, like not necessarily as a team lead for events, but also I've definitely seen them as what you call those logistical leads, like setup or back of house and things like that. So the roles these days, instead of being based on levels, are mostly based on the roles that they carry. Like for example, a floor judge is going to be paid a certain amount, and then the team lead is going to be paid a slightly higher, and then area leads, which is like one step above of the team leads, are going to be paid another slightly more, and so on. And of course, potential employers are going to be putting focus on putting people who have those skills and experience in those correct roles. So that's why the skill level is going to be reflected. It's going to be something that potential employers will look at when they are considering compensation for you. And similarly, when we're talking about how being paid for a team lead is going to be higher than than floor judge, or being paid area lead is going to be higher than team lead, and so on. The expected responsibilities of each of these roles will be different as well. So something to consider. So we talk about all the various potential reasons and consider points of consideration that we have when it comes to uh, considering compensation. Let's talk about the different types of compensations. Like let's see, let me just make sure I didn't miss any question. Nicholas, I'm going to come back to your question towards the end, all right? Because I feel like it is something a bit more specific to people who do use judging as a full-time job. Actionable feedback. Yeah. All right. I have it written down. Yes. Okay. Something that we'll try and get to in a bit. So I want to move on next. Talk about different types of compensation. The goal here is not going to be to talk about what is better. It's just that different judges have different wants and different motivations. So, the same way how different judges have different wants and motivations, different employers will have different goals and different motivations on how they want to set compensation for you. The point of talking about the different types of compensation is so that we can have you be familiar with the ideas, with the concepts, and that you is something that you can actively offer the potential employer options for them. Of course, when we're talking about compensation here, I'm not going to be talking about money versus materials, because end of the day, those two things are values in the compensation, which is not something I'm going to go into. You yourself will decide whether or not a box of booster is worth more or less a certain amount of money, depending on the market of what the product is. So most common method of compensation is by the day or by the job. Like this can be positive or negative depending on, like if let's say you are expected to be judging a RCQ, a local game store regional championship qualifier, and you are paid for the entire job, a certain amount of money. Depending on how big the event is, it could be a very short day, or if the expected attendance is very high, you might be playing for 6, 7 rounds even. So your day is going to be very different. Like if you go for 7 rounds and then the top 8, it's going to be at least 10 hours of work there, and so on. And I'm happy that there are people who are recognizing the cards. Feel free to. I remember Z doing this a long time ago. Not say a long time, a few years ago, where it was a conference in Singapore, where basically every single slide has a card art, and then he encourages people to like guess the card name at the beginning of every slide. Feel free to send it in the chat. I do not mind that at all if you want to play that game. Right? Yeah, feel free to just shoot down the name of the card if you want. So just to expand a bit more, I think this is a concept. This concept of pay is something that is very familiar with a lot of people. It's something that a lot of people are used to as well. Like I said earlier, you have the positive, negative of being longer or shorter than you expected. But at the very least, you can be assured of how much you're going to get at the end of the day. You don't have to. This is very important. For example, if for MagicCon, where you are going to be investing a lot of money, getting a flight ticket, getting hotels, and so on, right? And having a set expectations of how much you're going to get at the end of the week is going to be something that's very important for you. The other type of compensation is by the hour. It's like some people like to pay it by the like a part-time job where you're paid by the hour of how much time you spend. The bad, not so great thing about this is how there is uncertainty of what you can expect to get. Like for example, a 12-player RCQ and a 60-player RCQ are going to have very, very different drastic amount of hours. I've heard of 8-player RCQs where it's just straight down to single elimination. In single elimination times also, you have what? Because the top 2 gets the invites for RCQs, right? They effectively only play 2 rounds, so you're only going to be working for 2 hours. If you, for example, took an hour and a half commute to get to the venue and you're going to be paid 2 hours, I hope you already have transportation pay already lined up for that particular event. These are things that you need to consider if you are considering or being offered compensation packages based on the hour. Also, this creates like a weird incentive or disincentives. For example, if there is 16 players, you might be incentivized to have an extra player in because they're going to make an extra round play and so on. But having that extra is going to create a bit of a weird tension with your employer, because having that one extra person, for example, the 17th player, may give you an hour extra worth of pay, but for the TO, if he gets an extra player's entry fee, is it actually worth paying you the extra hour? There's sort of weird things that I don't really quite agree with when it comes to running compensation based on the hour. This might be more preferable to employers who are used to paying employees based on the hour if they have a lot of part-time workers and you are just another temporary worker for them. And so they already have a system for this sort of temporary workers, part-timers. Then it might be something that they themselves might prefer. But like I said, again, you have all of these considerations that you should consider if you are offered or if you plan to offer this type of conversations.
Look at the boy.
I'm gonna mute you. Yeah, don't forget to mute your mic if you're worried that there might be accidents. All right, moving on. There's another popular type of compensation is where it is by the number of players or slash customers. This can be fair because different amount of players means different amount of usually the more players, the heavier responsibilities, so the more compensation you get in return is something that could be fair. But I it's not that I dislike it, but I do feel a bit uncomfortable in the idea where this places judges as salespersons. Like you suddenly have an incentive of getting as many players in as possible, which might or might not be your job. Like if you are employer of the organization already, or you are working for the organization, then there's a direct incentive for you to want as many players coming in as possible. Uh, then it's aligned. But if you're not, or if you don't have an interest in being a salesperson, you just want to be a judge answering this question, or a customer service representative, not a customer acquisition type of job. If you're not looking for that type of job, this sort of compensation kind of forces you into this sort of role. So that's good, that's bad, and it really does come down to personal preference. Yes, like what Tommy just pointed out. Sean also has a good point about how you'll be putting a lot of risks about how attractive the TO might be. If the TO is known for drawing in a lot of players in the first place, then it's like feels like a no-brainer thing or a comfortable decision. But at the same time, if there are other factors that comes in that affects your potential players, you might get a lot less than what you expected. Again, the disadvantages of all these non-fixed rates, right? You have the inconsistencies, which I like. For example, I'm not gonna want to fly to Barcelona only to find out, like at the end of the day, how much I'm gonna get. Now, another common way of people doing this is that they just mix and match. Like it is a very good compromise, in my opinion, which is this is something that I frequently use for myself back in the PPTQ system, if anyone remembers that, where I have a base expectation, like I want this amount of compensation to cover my travel costs, to cover my time, like least expected amount of time that I'm going to be expected to be at your event. And then on top of that, if your event goes beyond a certain amount of player, I get extra because I have to put in extra effort, or I need to spend some extra time and things like that. Yeah. So some idea of mix and match is also something that's common in our region, and it's something that you can expect to have, like base rate plus and things like that. Yeah, like what Sean says is, if you treat the number of players as a bonus, that's kind of fair. On the flip side, there is also again the inconsistency, or the you don't know exactly how much you're going to get, that sort of thing, and the sort of inconsistency. So the consistency of pay also is both sides, where some employers might prefer to have the idea of how much you're going to be needing to spend in the first place, and some people are not. So yes. By the way, I don't think anyone knows what this card is. If you have an idea, please go ahead and put the guess into the chat. I'm going to read Sean's message in the meantime. I remember volunteering for a Magic Education event for a commander deck, and they gave a bunch of random loose boosters as bonus. It's very nice. Yes, Richard has it. Choose your weapon. I mean, I was going to say, give the mix and match, the slide title is going to be the hint of the card, but yes. Yep, not got it correct as well, but the first one to get it correctly is Richard. Congratulations. So, moving on from talking about types of compensation, there also is the discussion of, is judging really a skilled labor? Do you agree or disagree with this? Like, is it yes or no? Is judging a skilled labor? It is. One, actually, yes, yes, yes. I expect to see a lot of yeses. I mean, this Tommy's comment about needing certification depends on your employer. Like some employer might not be. Maybe. Sugeng, would you like to explain why you said maybe? Not trying to put you on the spot, but I am genuinely interested to the reason why you put the answer maybe. If you want to turn on your mic and talk to everyone about it, also you're welcome to if you want to. But yeah, I'm just very genuinely interested in listening to why. You don't have a microphone, it's fine. You want to slowly type it out, also fine. I'll go back to it. Or if you don't want to answer, that's also fine. That's totally fine if you want to. Yeah, sure. All right. The reason why I asked because I suspect that the reason why you answered maybe is the same reason why I'm what I'm going to say next, which is if you are working in a store for their Friday Night Magic and you press pairings round one, and then 50 minutes 1 hour later you press pair round two, and then in another hour you press pair round three, and without answering a single judge call, everyone submits their own results, event link, companion, and then the day is over. Is that skilled labor? Do you still consider judging that event skilled labor? Where all you do is just press a few buttons on a laptop or on your phone, even like these days you are able to. I like Sean's answer. Yeah. You are expected to answer judge calls. So yeah, the point of talking about this is that the expectations that the employer might have for you might be very different from the expectations that you have for the event. Meaning, you like I think something like what Sean just pointed out in the chat, Sean, where you say you are this is skilled labor, even though all you did in the event was press three buttons and then the event ran by itself. Sean's answer about how you being there, being prepared, and being able to answer any sort of possible judge question or solve any other issues makes you a skilled labor that is of value to the event. Even though on that day itself, there wasn't any need to, right? But does your potential employer share the same sort of value as you? Or is he just really looking for someone to press those three buttons? So these are the things that you should consider when you're discussing with your potential employers. Like what exactly are they looking for from you at that event? Ben just said, before I get to Ben's one, I like Brighton's one about how you need to know how to put 003 for ID. But that's specifically for very I guess it's more common in competitive events, but not so common in your regular area events. Ben has a very good comment in the chat. Ben says, I always feel that you're paid for the time you spend at the event, but it's the preparation that you put into the honing your craft as a judge that is much more worthy of praise. That is very, very true. That is something that I wholeheartedly agree on. However, does the employer feel the same? That is the, how do I say, unfortunate reality of things. Like this, do they share the same view as you? Because if they don't have the same sense of value, in the immaterial things like a judge's skill and the possible benefits of having the judge, a skilled judge at your event, it is going to be, you're going to have, but if you're not on the same level, if you're not having the conversation discussing while having the same values, the discussion might get very awkward there. So that's something, that's why I'm pointing this point out because we're talking about a wide range of events, right? Like not just like I dare say for us, the majority of the time that we're going to talk about compensation is not going to be on the MagicCon or on the regional championship finals level. It's going to be more on the relationship that you have with your local tournament organizer, be it on the LGS level or on the national level or even on the your province level, that sort of thing. Uh, Really important to make sure that you do recognize where both of you stand in what is expected of each other before having the conversation of compensation. Yeah. I'm just gonna highlight what Mark what I just noticed. Like I see Kwok Xiong's and Sugen's comment as well, but Mark's comment really stood out with I think which resonates with a lot of people. Kind of having having a lifeguard watching over a swimming pool. Yes, yes, but the while the analogy works really well here because saving lives is very very critical, it is a lot more ambiguous when it comes to customer service at an event. Like I wholeheartedly agree with you. I do think that is indeed should be the case, but it really depends on the employee. And hopefully we have, and I believe that we do have a lot of potential employers who do properly understand the value of having a judge. But yes, very good comment. I'm going to try and catch up on the other comments like from Kwok Siang. Know how to deal with the players who sit in the wrong table with the table numbers of player names, the companion. Yeah, that is a bit of would you call it advanced skill? But there is some customer service and there is some logistical challenges in how you want to settle an issue like that. Um, Especially in event link where you cannot edit the pairings, right? But yeah, that's a different discussion or something else. So against comment, judging needs a lot of practice for me. As on some parts, customer service also need to clean up things. Skill labor is not bit of both. That's why I say maybe. Yeah. Um, we are skilled laborers because we are practitioners of a very specific set of skills and knowledge, but at the same time, we also help with a lot of. I hope I'm not using the wrong word here, but more menial tasks like pushing in chairs, cleaning up trash. Um, we also are expected to be doing some of the things. But I have been in it's not very common, but I have been to an event where they told us specifically that don't pick up your trash because it's someone else is. I think that was a China, mainland China events where they specifically tell us you shouldn't be picking up trash because we have people hired specifically for that. So there's that very niche corner case thing, but that happened. That actually did happen. Yeah, very good comments. Thanks everyone for chipping in. So hopefully, I spent quite a bit of time on this, but I felt that this is important enough to have a conversation about. Okay. Good comments on the comment box as well. So if you're not checking out the chat, you are missing out. So I think I'm gonna go very briefly about expectations. I think we already touched briefly about these, like expectations, like for FNMs and for local game stores. Like I brought up the very exaggerated example of your job as judging a Friday Night Magic is only pressing 3 buttons. Exaggerated, yes, but also a real possibility. Does the tournament organizer of Friday Night Magic even want paid labor? Like very likely, your local game store already has an employee, a store employee watching over the counter, and that person can be the one that's pushing the buttons. So do the TO even want to have someone extra and having to put extra cost into having a person do this role? Excuse me. It is like if the TO is already used to like there something that's I don't want to say very common. I don't want to say very common. But there is a repeated scenario that I've read and heard about is where I am a brand new judge. I just got certified and I'm looking for events to judge. And I go to my local game store and I ask, can I judge your F&M? And while your intentions might be noble, you got your certification, you want to put the certification to use, the TO might not feel like there is a need to. It comes back to one of the discussions that we have earlier about whether or not the whole lifeguard situation. Like there's a very good in all those discussions that I talk about reading. Someone pointed out, I don't remember who, but someone pointed out was something very good where it is going from 0 to 1, basically from if you're paying nothing to something, even though it's a very small amount, is a lot more harder than from 1 to 0. Like if you're being expected to pay nothing to like $1 an hour, is a very exaggerated example, is actually infinitely harder than, for example, going from $1 to $10. Like even though the amount is like is huge, like from going from $1 to $10 is huge, but I think the step going from 0 to 1 is actually a lot more bigger hurdle than 1 to 10. Like we talk about how there are events that you basically have nothing to answer or whatever, right? This sort of situation is usually I would recommend like the person that if you don't think there's any difficult things in the first place, you're gonna be there anyway, right? You can just offer yourself as, hey, I'm available as a resource if anyone wants me, and then just take whatever that the potential tournament organizer might want to offer you. But yeah, this is the difficult question is that if we don't have, does anyone has their local game store with a huge amount of players with FNMs? I have heard before, and actually not that uncommon to hear that there are 60 player FNMs in certain stores in North America where they actually run it like a competitive area event where the 3-0 gets a significant amount of store credit or things like that. There are such things, but I believe, no, I would not say I believe. I feel that there is a very low chance of that happening in our region. But yeah, I just want to quickly mention, like, if you're brand new to the community, if you're brand new both in the community of the store or in the community of judging, consider yourself to like try to make yourself known as a member of the community first before trying to ask for being asked to be paid. Yeah. Moving on from your FNMs and your regular RL events, you have the RCQs or a big cash event at your LGS or your local province and region. You need IPG knowledge, you need competitive RL experience. There's more skills involved. The the challenges are definitely higher, and it is also harder to get experience because of we don't have as many of these events in the first place. So it's very hard to get skilled in this sort of things. But at the same time, speaking as a tournament organizer and store owner myself, these sort of events are not necessarily better at attracting players than Friday Night Magics, despite being a lot more expensive because I need to pay for more prizes, I need to pay for judges, I need to pay for a more well-run event and things like that. So if you want to like bring yourself into events like this, have clearer expectations of what is the situation around the events are like. If the store already has like a experienced event judge that they count on every time, then try to, if you want, it depends on your goals again, your own motivations, right? You want to gain experience, you want to be known as a veteran, you want to gain those skills if you're fresh level 2, for example. You might want to like volunteer and be there to gain some experience, or sometimes there's just not as many things to do as well. Mm. Mm. Yeah, I'm gonna be running out of time, so let's just go on, talk about the regional conventions and regional championships. These are, they give better pay, they give a lot more significant pay, but they at the same time they're also expecting more out of you. and because of how further they are from your, for most people, going to be a lot more cost involved, travel, lodgings, things like that. But at the same time, it's going to be a great place to learn because multi-judges team events are not that common anymore. It's a very good opportunity to learn a lot of things and also to make a lot of new friends. Then you have the even more higher end things like Pro Tour. The Pro Tour and World Championship is going to be something that's very, 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 very few judges. Like I think it's like I want to say around the teens, like 15-ish or less amount of judges for each Pro Tour, which is only 4 times a year. Very, very few judges will be able to have this opportunity, and at the same time, the competition is going to be really, really fierce because there are so many capable people who are qualified to be on the Pro Tour as a judge. Also, the pool of potential judges is a lot more wider now. You don't necessarily have to be just a level 3. You don't have to be a level 3 to judge Pro Tour. There are many, many level 2s, quite a significant amount of level 2s who are judging the Pro Tours in the past few Pro Tours. So, something for you to consider. Oops. Right. Very quickly, we'll talk about one more very important thing for you to consider when you are making your plans to judge an event, the risks and the budget. Like when I was doing, I think Baltimore, I was doing an event in one of the smaller cities in the States, right? There is an option between a $30 motel, which has very, very disturbing reviews, or a $200 hotel room, which is a lot more well respected. And the complaints were just like the and reception was being rude to me, the sort of thing, versus whatever horrors that I was reading off the $30 motel. These are things that you should consider when you are doing your planning and your compensation. Like if the compensation does not include additional stipend for accommodations, what is your risk level, what is your comfort level, and have clear expectations. Don't expect more than the bare minimum if you are going for more budget options and so on. Yeah, just something very briefly. Just a quick reminder about this sort of risks and situations that you might encounter. So yes, to wrap up the entire conversations that we have so far, sorry for taking up so much time. I do believe that we started a bit later, so hopefully the organizers can let this. Sorry, Sashi, but that will give us a bit extra time for Q&A. But very, very quickly to wrap up what I've been discussing regarding compensation, figure out what is your motivations. What is your goal going into an event when you're going to be asking or expecting compensation? Figure out what is it going to cost you in terms of time, in terms of expenses like travel, accommodations, food, all those possible expenses. So you have what you want, what you need to spend, put them all together. Is it worth it? Is it going to be worth your time and effort that you're going to put in? And that would be your answer on whether or not you should be accepting that compensation. So yes, this is I know that I'm disappointing a lot of people who are hoping for something more specific, like numbers or exact type of conversations that people should be having. But that is really a very, very localized discussion to have, which I am happy to try and help you, but very likely if you're going to be asking for numbers and things like that, I'm going to be asking you back a lot of questions before I can try and help you with that, because I'm going to have a lot of things that I would consider before putting out a proposal. So there is a question in advance that I got from Joel, which I think is a really, really good question. Before I address Nicholas' question, Joel asked me when he was looking through my presentation outline that I was submitting for content review. Was asking me about what do I think about answering rules questions or helping out a store or potential employer outside of compensated time, as in when you're not being hired by a person, how much time and effort should you be putting in answering questions or helping this potential employer out? I believe that was the question, I think. Joel, if you can, if I misunderstood and you could just clarify for me, I will happily answer the clarified question. But it's why 50 pesos? How much is 50 pesos even? I don't think that's a lot of money. Um, uh, this one really is on the sense of how much do you value your time. Like, if you are someone who spends a lot of time scrolling Facebook and looking at reels, and not to say that it is not a good thing to do. I mean, it's your time. You should spend the time the way that you want to. But for me personally, those are very low value things to do with your time. Answering rules question and sort of like exercising my rules knowledge, practicing that rules mind is much more higher value than those sort of things. So if I have the time to do this, I will be answering those rules questions without asking for payment or whatever, because one, I enjoy doing it. Two, it's something that it's a very good use of my time. Obviously, if I'm busy, if I'm working, if I have something other more pressing things to do, I probably won't be using the time. So it really depends on your situation, where your time and whether or not you actually want to answer it. So there's no really good answer to this. If the question was a very highly specialized question, like how do you do court drafts after a 6-round cut of a 300-player tournament, that sort of logistical questions where there is a great amount of skill or logistical knowledge involved, then I think you're more than qualified to say, you're more than justified to say that it's something that I would be happy to help you with if I am employed staff for you for that particular event, instead of answering that question for free. Yeah. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense for you on what I think about questions like this. It really depends on the question and your personal situation. There's a lot of comments on the 50 pesos. La, 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 la. Yeah. One order cystic rice per round after round 6. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. So that's that. I know it's 9 o'clock. I just want to quickly address Nicholas' question earlier about he asks, in view of people who use judging as a full-time job, is it something to consider if someone who judges as a hobby being put up in comparison for selection during bigger events? My answer to that question, I'm just going to post that question into the chat so that everyone can see. Also, I want to help Joel clear up the things that the people don't. Joel does not charge people money for rules question. He only takes the credit for it, just to make it clear. Okay. It is I'm going to be very, very blunt with the answer with for Nicholas' question about this. Like when you have two candidates, one is clearly doing it for fun and one is clearly doing it for as a job. Someone needs the job or needs the money versus someone who doesn't really need the money. The very, very blunt answer I have for you is, does the employer care? Like, I'm sorry, I don't have any better way of making answering this question, but the reality of things is the employer might just not care. It's what are the employer looking for? Right? If they are looking for just persons who are able to do the job that they want them to, that's all they're gonna care. Like, it doesn't matter their financial situations or whatever. If the employer is someone who does take employment decisions personally, like I know this person needs help, financially, and I think that he can do a good job for me, and I would choose this person. So that did again. So it really depends on the employer, right? But I believe I know I personally feel that most of the time a potential employer probably doesn't really care, like on whether or not you are actually using judging as a profession. I do know that some potential employers do think that, oh, this person judges all the time, or he's been judging for 30 years. As long as the magic exists, he has been judging. Then he's pretty much the full time judge. Then it's very likely that he might be trusted for certain roles and things like that. I hope that answers that question. I mean, I wish there's a better way for me to answer it, but I think it's just the most effective way of having an answer, having the answer. It's up to the end of the day what the employer wants, and I mean, you can put your own personal situation for consideration for a potential employer, but whether or not they will actually put it into consideration is really up to them, and it really depends on the employer. Rafi says ChatGPT can answer rules questions for free. Yes, ChatGPT can answer rules questions for free, but can they answer accurately? That is the answer that you should be looking for. Thanks, Sashi. I just want to make sure that I'm sorry, I know I'm already taking up your time, Sashi, but just want to make sure that everyone's questions. Are you? Oh, sorry. I just see Nicholas' follow-up question. Should it be a valid point for consideration? If it's me, if I am the employer, these are situations that I would probably want to know. Like if I have 100 potential candidates for the job, it's not something that I might have the capacity. I might not have the bandwidth to have all these additional considerations. But if it is between 2 or 3 people, it might be something like, oh, I can't really decide between a few more people. I might want to get to know them better, and that might factor into my decision. Is it the right thing to do? I'm sorry, I can't give you a very definite answer for this because it really depends on the employer after all. Like it's the same way how some decisions are just beyond your control, and this is possibly one of them. Is it awkward to charge for non-rules questions? Blah blah blah. What Rafi said. Yeah, charging people for rules questions. I don't think that's something that actually happens, but if it does, I'd like to know. A lot of employers in the industry are hobbyists first and business people second to make decisions and not being the best. Some business wise depends on the event level, right? Someone a potential employer on the LGS level and a potential employer on the Magicon level is going to be having very, very different priorities. Also, they're probably going to be delegating like a pastimes TO, Alan Hockman, I think. It's probably like, the official TO in name, but everything is probably mostly decided by Meg Wong and John Temple, the employees, rather than the TO itself. And when you're dealing with contracts of that level, probably in many, many digits, you're going to have very, very different priorities in the way that you make your decisions. Yep. Sorry for taking up so much of your time, everyone. Thank you. Please feel free to send me questions. Be happy to answer them in any sort of way that you want me to. I am QJ Wong in pretty much most social media. You can reach out to me in any of this situation. If you have feedback that you like to give me, please send it in. I'm gonna take any more of your time. Thank you so much. Sorry for the taking up extra 7 minutes. I'm gonna cut myself off here. Thank you for your attention. Bye bye.